All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started on the construction of the album itself. So I'm going to set this project aside and we are going to build the album. So what you need for the album, it's very simple, very simple. It's nothing that hasn't been done before. So we're going to start off with 2 pieces of chipboard that are cut to 6.5 by 6.5. That's going to be your front cover and your back cover, and your spine is going to be 2.5 inches by 6.5 inches. All right, or if you want to make it smaller, you could do 2.5 by 5.5 or 2.5 by 8.5, or however tall your album is, that's how tall your spine should be. And for as far as the width of your spine goes, if you are going to have 4 pages in your book like we have, you should use 1/2 inch for every page. So that's why we have 4 pages, so that's why we are at 2.5. If you're going to have 5 pages, you should do a 3-inch spine. It's all personal preference. Now, if you're going to, a good rule of thumb is the 1/2 inch gusset per page, because by the time we put our pockets on and our flaps on and all the good embellishments and stuff, it's good to have that 1/2 inch gusset so that nothing really gets squished. Okay, so that's just how I've always done it. Some people use 1/4 inch, some people go larger than 1/2 inch, or maybe 3/8 inch. That is entirely up to you, but for purposes of this video, I'm going to go with 1/2 inch. All right, so we have a 6.5 by 6.5. We are going to wrap the chipboard. So what I like to do is keep 1 inch on all 4 edges of the chipboard. So to cover my 6.5 by 6.5, I cut myself a piece of my craft cardstock, which is my base cardstock color, and I cut it down to 8.5 by 8.5. Okay, so this is where I find a scoreboard comes in handy, and you'll have to excuse it, it's kind of dirty. It's been through the ringer a time or two. It's traveled across the country a few times, so it's actually holding up pretty well. So what I like to do is set, and it helps keep everything straight. So I set the paper that I'm going to wrap. Actually, I'm going to put it this way, in the top left corner. And if you haven't seen these yet, and I apologize, I don't remember the woman's name. Oh, she's one of the members of Country Craft Creations. I can't think of what her name is, but her husband made her some of these acrylic, looks like a ruler, right? It's 1 inch wide. So you buy a set of these from Country Craft Creations. I think Tammy still has them. You'll have to check with her. I'm not 100% sure. But there's a set of 3. There's 2 of them that are 1 inch and 1 of them that is 1.5 inches. Okay, I always just use this. I realize I should probably be using this, but I never follow the rules, so we're just going to put that back where it goes. Anyway, so what I like to do is put one of these across the top, okay, and another one across the bottom again, or across the side, because this is 1 inch, this is 1 inch. That gives me my first perfect 1 inch border on all 4 sides. It's ingenious. It's just ingenious. So it used to be that I would score down 1 inch, but I guess I still could, it wouldn't hurt anything. But at this point you want to add some strong adhesive. If I had some score tape sheets, the full 8.5 by 11 sheets of adhesive, I would use that. It just makes doing the covers so easy, everything's so smooth, but I unfortunately am out of that. So I'm just using regular score tape, 3/8 inch score tape. You could also use wet glue, but I'm an impatient crafter, so and not that our glitter glue dries pretty quickly, but I just like to do score tape for the covers. Okay, and then what I do is line these up right up against these 2 little 1 inch what would you call them? Templates, maybe? And there, that gives me a perfect 1-inch border all the way around. Because even it used to be, even when I scored and I had to line it up, it was still wonky. So I just can't win. So, but now that makes it super easy. So then I just give it a good burnish on the reverse side. Okay, and then what we're going to do is fold this over like so on all 4 sides. So you see how that kind of scores that and wraps around that chipboard so that you don't see the different color. Depending on my mood, sometimes I don't care if you could see the chipboard through on the edge. It just depends. So, but for this one, I wanted to cover all that up because I'm using a craft color, and you can see how the color is different than the chipboard. So, all right. So, what I want to do next, we want to cut out these little squares that folding that over created. And I like to use my cutter bee scissors for this because they're nice and sharp. And then what I do on one side is I cut straight up to the edge of the chipboard on one side, and then I angle the other side. Okay, so let's do that here. Straight up to the edge, and then angle. And all of the design team members, excuse me, we all have these tutorials on our in our YouTube group, and Tammy has the original because Tammy actually came up with this method. I think she calls this the no fuss method. I'm sorry, Tammy, I can't remember what it's called, the official name of it, but it's much, much easier than laying out that whole big line of cardstock and then trying to flip it. I mean, this is just so much easier. Anyway, so again, we're going to come straight across from where that straight line was on that side, and we're going to come straight across and cut straight up on that one, and then angle that one. And let's do the same over here. Okay. So you can decide, again, because this is 6.5 by 6.5 square, doesn't matter which side you work on first. So what I'm going to do is, let me just double check, wrap this, make sure, bend it back this way, make sure nothing's hanging over on either side. Take some glue. You don't want to use too much, but you want to make sure you put enough in there to hold. Then I just take my bone folder, and a little squish. Uh-oh, I lost my baby wipe. Somebody took it. Let me grab another one. I swear there's gremlins in this house. There's only 2 of us here, and I'm the only one up here. Okay, so then we're going to come over to the other side, do the same thing. Oh, and by the way, I know I do this a little differently than what you'll see Tammy do. This works just as well. I haven't had any issues with it. Dang it, of course I set it down. I have this tiny, you probably can't see it, but I can. I have a tiny little overhang right there. I'm just going to do my best to just chop that off. I could have left it, but I just didn't want that bulk there. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down the 3rd side. I couldn't do a straight line if I tried. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, and just bring that over. Okay. So you see it's all wrapped nicely. This beautiful don't fall. All right, so I have already attached the other one. You can see I had a little boo-boo. I had to lift it up. See, even though I had a straight line, I still put it on crooked. So we're going to call that the back. So, but what we're going to do is we are going to, excuse me, got a frog in my throat all of a sudden. We're going to attach the spine, or the covers to the spine. And then what we're going to do is take some score tape. Now, I only have 3/8 inch score tape. I'm out of the 1/4 inch. So I put 2 strips of the 3/8 inch score tape. Again, you can use glue here, but I like something even just a little more substantial on my covers, just because they take a lot of abuse. So you can see I'm putting on upside down. It doesn't matter. You can do it however you want to do it. I am going to make sure I'm going to line it up on my my mat here. Okay, I'm lining it up with this black line. I don't know if you can see that. But I'm going to try to leave myself a little more than 1/8 of an inch. You can see I left it a little bit over here. This is never easy. Ooh, see? Makes me nuts. There you go. Just line her up, stick her down. And I like to leave that little gap because when it folds closed, it's hard for you to see it. So when it folds closed, I like for this piece of chipboard to be right up next to the spine piece, but I also like for there to be enough room that it can close nicely without putting too much pressure on the paper underneath, because then the spine can crack. And even though this is artisan cardstock, there is a possibility that it could crack. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue down this last edge. I'm not sure why I didn't do it before. So as you can see, it's already put together. You would just repeat that process on the other side, and you've got yourself a cute little book. All right, so then what you want to do is, excuse me, you want to mat the inside of your project. So if your spine is 2.5 inches, I like to leave 1 inch on either side. So I cut this down to 4.5, and then my covers are 6.5 by 6.5. So I'm going to leave that little 1/8 of an inch for a border. So I cut this down to 4.5 by 6 3/8. And then you can apply your glue to the back or your score tape. Oh, one thing I did not do. Anytime there's a joint in my project, I like to put a piece. Now this is a waste of score tape for me, and I wouldn't normally do this. If I had 1/4 inch, I would use the 1/4 inch score tape here. And I'm going to put a piece of score tape on either side of the joint so that the paper doesn't buckle. If you've ever had the paper buckle or bubble up whenever there's a joint, you know what I'm talking about. So this score tape just helps hold it, and it won't bubble up or buckle. Those are official terms. Those are official Anne-Marie terms. So we're going to just take that off real quick. Okay. And this pokey tool is my favorite pokey tool, by the way. And it's pretty. It has like this little cover. Look how pretty it is. It's called a magic wand, I think. It has a pokey tool on one end and a jewel picker on the other. Love it, and it's just pretty to look at. Anyway. Removing the backer tape. sticking it to my arm. All right, so then we're just going to come in here, center this up, try to make it straight. All right, excuse my head if my head gets in the shot. And then just try to line it up as best you can. Just give it a little burnish. Make sure you get a good stick on that spine because there's going to be a lot of pressure on the spine with the pages. Alright, and at this point what I like to do is, so see how it's, I mean it doesn't bend? So what I like to do is just start lifting up. So see what it's doing? It's actually, excuse me, connecting or contacting with that score tape that's in that little track there. So you want to give it a good burnish. Don't push too hard. I learned the hard way and push straight through it. And using a blunt bone folder would be is the best thing because if you do it gently enough, you won't rip the paper. So let's do this side. Give it a good burnish. Okay, so you see how that's very neatly. All right, and then I'm going to actually cover this with a pattern paper anyhow. So, excuse me, so you won't see. And then you could come on this side, make it pretty over here as well. But again, that's going to get covered with a pattern paper. And get yourself a super, super nice book. So that is the guts of the book. I'm not the guts. That is the shell of the book. Okay, and at this point you can do your favorite binding method. A lot of people do the hinge binding method. So you can do whatever you want. No, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. I forgot. We need to cover these. We need to cover these 2 pages. So, oh, I didn't use. All right, so I cut mine down to 6 3/8 by 6 3/8. And that just covers up all the internal workings. Just makes it look super, super pretty. So I'm going to take, you're going to see me do glue this time. Again, if I had the full sheet score tape, I would use that. But this actually works just fine at this point. And I'm using the tried and true art glitter glue with a fine middle tip. Right, and then what I want to try to do is line it up. I'm going to have to stand up for this one. Line it up. With what I covered up the spine. And it's off a little bit, but that's okay. Give it a big burnish. Let's go to this side. Again, did I say I cut these to 6 3/8 by 6 3/8? Since my covers are 6 1/2 by 6 1/2. It's amazing with this art glitter glue. It looks like there's not much on there, right? But it's amazing what this stuff holds. Okay, so let's line this one up. Okay. Make sure it makes contact. Now, at this point, you're all covered up, you're all ready to go. You can go ahead and do your favorite binding method. I have my favorite that I use. I think everybody does, but you can actually message me and I will share that with you. I'd be happy to share that with you. So, or you can check out Tammy's YouTube channel or even the Facebook group, and they can walk you through doing the hinge binding. So, thanks very much for stopping in, and excuse me, making the book with me today, and stay tuned for video number 2. I'm going to go ahead and show you the page construction. Thanks. Bye.